Attention, armchair quarterbacks and shower thought GMs. It's time for this week's episode of SportsBall with Mike Maharrey and Alan Mosley.
Did you see that the Rona claimed a new victim?
Oh no, who now?
The Pro Bowl.
Oh yeah, I did hear about that. Nobody cares.
That just goes to show you that if you have as many comorbidities as the Pro Bowl did, then the Rona's lethal.
Of all the things that have been canceled by the Rona, the Pro Bowl is probably the one that I care least about.
Welcome back to Sports Ball for episode 79? I think it's episode 79. I am your host, Alan Mosley, joined as always by Tampa Bay sports superfan Mike Maharrey. Mike, you look extra sports ball-y today.
You like that? We got the sports ball background going.
Okay. I see the Sooner schooner over your shoulder.
Yes, yeah, it is. It's like right up. Wrong way.
Yeah, that's the burning couch. There you go. And there's
There
Bucko
it is.
Bruce.
Yeah, Bucko Bruce.
Yeah. I'm going to get you. If I get you a Bucko Bruce hat, will you wear it?
Heck yeah.
Okay. Because I think the logo behind you, he's got like the Conquistador helmet more so than a hat.
Yeah.
But either way.
I have the Bucko Bruce. I've got a couple of Bucko Bruce pennants.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. Old school.
That's how you can tell that's when you have a Bucko Bruce pennant, like in true creamsicle fashion, that's how all your neighbors can tell. You don't care whether or not you win or lose. You just want to enjoy playing the game.
Exactly. People here in Jacksonville appreciate that too.
So speaking of the Rona claiming victims, I know you feel sad for this guy, Alabama's Nick Saban, and the athletic director, but honestly, who gives a crap about Greg Byrne, test positive for COVID-19. This means that Steve Sarkisian is going to be getting the Crimson Tide ready for their weekend matchup against Georgia. So this is really the only question I have for that, Mike Maharrey. Do you think that's really going to matter much?
Nah.
No.
Here's my question. Is Saban actually sick or did he just test positive?
So he is not sick. He has shown no symptoms.
Typical.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, really at the end of the day, we know that the ridiculous rules are the ridiculous rules, and that's why he's kind of having to take a step back from the team. The only thing that matters at this point, if you're a fan, is how much is this going to matter for this week's matchup against Georgia? And so you think that Bama's going to win or lose regardless of Saban's
yeah, I mean,
condition.
Sarkisian's no slouch. And I'm not necessarily saying that Alabama's going to win, but I think if they fail to win, it's not going to be because Saban's not on the sideline.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I mean, I don't know for sure who's going to win, but I don't think that. I mean, and we don't know for sure exactly what role Saban's going to play. Like, I know
Right.
Sarkisian is, quote, according to the article, he's, quote, getting the team ready for this weekend. But I have a hard time believing that Saban's going to be in a bunker somewhere with no telephone or television.
You know, this brings up a kind of a side note, but
Mhm.
my wife and I were talking about this, and you know, I mentioned it too. You know, these coaches and these football players are arguably living their lives as safe as you could possibly expect anybody to live. You know, I use air quotes around safe, right? I mean, they're following these protocols. I know for a fact for like the NFL in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers facility, they're putting wristbands on people that actually track who they're near, and if you get more than 6 feet, it buzzes. So, you know, they've been hardcore on this. Now we know that everybody's not following all the rules, but that's true if you go to Walmart, right?
Yeah.
So just taken as the general population, you would think the football players and the coaches would be the least likely people to get the Rona, but they're still getting the Rona.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. So there's, I don't want to get on too much of a political bent, but I know there's lots of reports out that have been showing of the people who have gotten the Rona, something like 8 out of 10 of them claim to be a all the time mask wearer.
Right.
And so if you have that high a percentage of people playing by the rules getting the Rona, then it's almost as if there's little one can do because a virus is going to virus.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was getting ready to say. It's almost as if the virus is just going to virus.
Yeah.
Which is what they said all the way back in March when it was, you know, what was it, 15 days to flatten the curve.
Yeah.
I mean, that was the whole thing. If people are going to get sick, we're just going to spread it out. And now somehow it's become this thing where nobody is ever going to get sick again. And we're all going to die from cancer. And diabetes because nobody's going to the doctor. But anyway, that's not sports. So, but I just find that interesting when you see all these protocols and whatnot.
Well, moving on to somebody who finds themselves sans a contract that is not Rona related, LeVeon Bell. LeVeon Bell, who I think was never more than disgruntled during his time with the New York Jets, now finds himself released from the roster. They couldn't work out a trade with anybody. He's looking for a new team this week, although the Jets still owe him $6 million. I love this picture, by the way, because both of these guys shouldn't be with the Jets, but one of them still is. And I'll let everyone guess who that is.
Right.
But I'll ask you this question, Mike Maharrey. LeVeon Bell. Who should pick him up?
I don't know. I was about to ask. I wonder where he'll end up going to be gruntled.
So a few people have pointed out that according to LeVeon Bell's agent, he has narrowed it down to 3 teams that have expressed interest. There's the Kansas City Chiefs, there's the Buffalo Bills, and there's the Miami Dolphins. Now, what's hilariously convenient, what a coincidence, guess who the next 3 opponents of the Jets are? The Dolphins, Bills, and Chiefs. That just sounds like he has a chip on his shoulder.
Yeah, well, we knew that, right?
I mean, we knew that, but let me throw out, I mean, this is related to LeVeon Bell, but it's really more of a meta conversation about diva players and disgruntled players in the league in general. Would you have believed me if I told you, say, 3 or 4 years ago that both LeVeon Bell and Antonio Brown would not be on a roster at all, much less not playing for the Pittsburgh Steelers?
No.
You wouldn't have believed that. How about this, though? Neither Le'Veon Bell or Antonio Brown, as of the time of this recording, are playing in the NFL.
At all.
But you know what? Pittsburgh Steelers are 4-0.
True.
It's almost as if the team is more important than the player.
Yeah. Now, some people, I think in some situations, there's genuine reason to be disgruntled. There, maybe an issue between look at somebody like Leonard Fournette. From everything I've heard, he was not happy in Jacksonville. Jacksonville wasn't happy with him. He parted ways. From everything that I hear, he's happy as a clam in Tampa. And he's contributing and apparently good in the locker room, all of these things that you want. So you have some people that I think are just always disgruntled because that's how they are. And then some things, sometimes it's situational. And, but I kind of get the feeling Bell's one of these people that's probably always going to be disgruntled.
I mean, the thing that I think hurts Bell is that at the end of the day, what was probably the best fit for him for the medium, at least the medium term, was the Pittsburgh Steelers. And that bridge is burnt.
Right.
He went to the Jets because that's where he could go to get paid and get out of Pittsburgh. Then the complaint was, well, Adam Gase sucks and he didn't utilize Le'Veon Bell right. Now, don't get me wrong. I totally agree with that.
That's not
Don't get me wrong. I totally agree with that. Definitely, at least the first part. Adam Gase sucks. But the point being is that the league's not that big. And if you think that coaches and managers don't talk, you're kidding yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
You don't get to burn that many bridges before all of a sudden you don't find a home anymore. I don't think anyone thinks that Antonio Brown's not an elite wide receiver, but he sure as hell ain't playing football right now, is he?
That's right.
And I mean, and he, as a matter of fact, is an example of somebody, his latest attempt was the Patriots. If you can't go to New England and just go to work, then you're not going to get to go anywhere and go to work. And he couldn't make it work. So, I mean, it's just a shame. I mean, I know that there's a Pittsburgh. On the one hand, if you're Pittsburgh and you're 4-0, you're not that concerned, at least not anymore. On the other hand, you're thinking, if I'm Pittsburgh and I'm 4-0, but I could also still have Le'Veon Bell and Antonio Brown, think how good we would be.
Right.
I mean, it's just so. I mean, at the end of the day, I feel like that's one of those deals where maybe everyone lost, but at some point, the organization just has to draw the line and say, well, this is the direction we're going.
Right.
It is what it is. Speaking of what direction you're going, Mike, have you ever wondered, I wonder what it would be like if I was out there on the field trying to make that play?
Like trying to make what kind of play? Like any kind of play?
Like any kind of play. Like you're watching a play and you think to yourself, I could do that, or
right.
I wonder what it would look like if just a regular Joe was out there trying to make that tackle.
I'd like to, yeah, that'd be interesting to see, right?
I have live footage of exactly that.
Oh, you do? Let's see it.
And nah. So that's Josh Norman, which, by the way, as far as corners go, I think Josh Norman is towards the end of his career. He's getting another shot here in Buffalo. He's also getting that shot right there.
That was a heck of a shot.
Now, this might be a little bit unfair because we already know that Derrick Henry is something that's beyond human. And
Yes.
Josh Norman is only a corner after all and not a linebacker or a safety. But goodness gracious. Yikes. That clip right there pretty much just encapsulates the Tuesday night game. Yes, you heard that right. Tuesday night game. I think that
First
was
one since what, like World War II?
I think it's only the second one ever. I think
Yeah.
I had read some only like the second one in 70 years or something like that. There was a Tuesday night game. Of course, the Titans had their game rescheduled against the Bills because I think that they're finally Rona free, and so they're playing again. By the way,
So a bunch of Titans died? Is that what I
oh
understand?
yeah, they're all gone. I mean, those are the replacements. So Derrick Henry and the replacements beat the Bills 42-16. By the way, the Bills Mafia says mask up onto the Chiefs. How amazing it is. I told you before the show, I actually feel embarrassed for the Bills right now.
Yeah.
I don't have a dog in the fight. I don't care about the Buffalo Bills, but my God. They go from getting dominated on national television for 3 hours to then just signaling their impotence on social media with that mask up garbage. 42-16. Now, you know what? We're done talking about the Rona, and we're done talking about how bad the Bills played against the Titans. Let's talk about this, Mike Maharrey. We talking about practice, as Iverson put it. Practice? Now, a lot of people point out the Titans had, they were only in their facility for a walkthrough like twice in the last 16 days. They basically went 2 weeks without football.
Now, they did go to a high school and work
Well,
out,
a select handful of players went to a high school, and I don't know what they did there, but apparently it worked. But the moral of the story is, I think most of the country were betting on the Bills in that game. There were two undefeated teams vying for first place in the AFC. But if for no other reason at all, than that the Bills were a little bit more battle-tested. Their guys have been in the locker room, in the weight room, on the practice field, in the film room. They should have been ready for the Titans. Whereas the Titans, we see these off-season, right? Like some of these guys gain a little weight.
Yeah.
Don't stick to the diet. Don't stick to the workouts.
Mm-hmm.
You can't always trust these guys to come back in shape. They've had a couple of weeks off. They've been isolated. They're not allowed to use their NFL facilities. So we really don't know what kind of facilities they have access to. And they come out there and absolutely smoke an undefeated team from bell to bell.
Yeah.
I think every player in the NFL is going to go to the Players Association and start lobbying for less practices. Do you think that this is any type of indictment on the entire kind of practice regimen structure of the NFL, or is this just a one-off?
That's hard. I don't know. I mean, in my gut, I feel like it's a one-off. I feel like you've got to practice, but maybe that's just me being old school and conventional wisdoming,
Mm-hmm. I'll tell you the story that I liked. I saw a little update from Pat McAfee, who's the old kicker for the Colts, and he has a show, and he was talking about when he was in the league, when he was a younger guy in the league, he wasn't there during those dominant Colt years in the very beginning. When he came in, the Manning, the Peyton regime was already like the grizzled veterans. And it's not that they didn't practice. Of course they practice. And goodness knows Peyton Manning ran the practices. And if he said we're going to run the same drill 20 times, they did it because what Peyton says goes. With that said, McAfee always thought they didn't practice as long or as hard as a lot of people. Now, they put in plenty of work in film. They had plenty of people kind of over their shoulders saying, watch this, check this out, take notes of that. But when it comes to pads, when it comes to sprints, when it comes to locker room, it was more of a, he said, it's something that Jim Caldwell said, we want to be the fastest and the freshest team on Sunday. And one way to help be the fastest and freshest team is to not blow ourselves out during the week. Yeah. Whereas, of course, as you know, there's a lot of old school coaches out there that they are very much the opposite. They're the old, Barrett Bryant type, or we're gonna run you till you die of dehydration, and we're gonna make a man out of you.
Yes, and you'll like it.
But those Colt teams were pretty damn good. Yeah. And if those were teams that were more practicing up here than because we're trusting our elite athletes to take care of themselves, but by and large, we want to be fresh on Sundays.
Yeah.
I think the Titans have perhaps demonstrated the concept of being the fastest, freshest team on Sunday. I don't think that the Titans are going to go on to only having one practice a week. I'm not saying that. But I am saying that maybe Vrabel still being a relatively young coach, the Titans being a healthy team right now, maybe they only do 2 or 3 walkthroughs a week as opposed to 4 or 5 or 6. You know, there's the old adage, particularly in the NFL, that the thing you always want to hear from your coach is, "We'll see you on Wednesday," or "We'll see."
Yeah.
Meaning that you take off the beginning of the week as
Right.
reward for a job well done the previous week. Maybe that becomes the norm because you want your guys to be fresh 5 weeks into the year, 10 weeks into the year, 2 weeks into the playoffs, and on.
Well, let's think about this for a second. You know, as you get later in the year, as you get into November and December, you'll see a lot of veterans, you know, people that have been in the league 5, 10 years, start taking days off, taking
Sure.
those practices off. And the coaches excuse them because their bodies are older. They're, you know, more prone to get run down. If it's good for them, why would
Yes.
it necessarily not be good for a younger guy?
Yeah.
Now, the only sport I have the sport I played, hockey, you know, you're playing every other day. So it's a little bit different thing, but you are basically you're maintaining your body, and then your practices are really working on minutia, timing, you know, maybe new breakout, working on power play or whatever, but more than anything, just to keep loose and limber, and then preparing mentally for the team that you're playing next. Maybe that does, you know, go over to football, where there is a longer recovery time than there is in say hockey or basketball. I don't know. It's interesting to think about.
The only thing I'll say to wrap up that point is you and I had both talked previously about Derrick Henry, in that he's not getting quite the same touches and yards this year.
Right.
And granted, when you're playing, if you're up 20 on the Bills or more, if you're up 30 on the Bills in the second half, then there's no reason to be putting a bigger workload on someone like Derrick Henry, because you want Derrick Henry to be healthy and fresh in December. But you want Derrick Henry to be fresh and healthy in December of 2021 and 2022 and 2023. You got to be thinking long term when you're managing a football franchise.
Right.
And so if you can do that and you can still win, then by that logic, you'd be dumb not to.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I don't know. I mean, it's not, now to be fair, it's not like the Titans did this because they're geniuses. They did this because that's kind of how the league dictated things based on the Rona and stuff. But I mean, if I'm the Titans, I would be seriously considering sort of keeping a similar schedule for the next few weeks. And if they reach 7 and 8-0, and if I'm another team at that point, I'd start taking a few pages out of their playbook.
Yeah. Here's a funny thought. You know, you said they can't go in the facilities. Can you imagine being working out at the Y and then walks Derrick Henry?
I imagine I would like to watch for a few minutes and then go home and eat some ice cream.
Would you want to spot him?
No. What's funny is Derrick Henry was asked about his big stiff arm of Josh Norman, and his answer was, "I guess I did too many curls." Imagine being such a disadvantaged player as Derrick Henry that your biggest weakness is you work out too much.
Here's a little anecdote for you. I was listening to a podcast I frequently listen to, Tampa Bay Sports, and a couple of years ago, the Buccaneers did joint practices in preseason with the Titans. And they were saying that this particular guy was on the sidelines covering the practice, and Eddie George was there. And people will remember Eddie George. He was not a small man.
No.
And the podcaster, he said that when Derrick Henry walked up, Eddie George basically just disappeared. That's how big Derrick Henry is.
I know a lot of people have commented about it's popular on the internet. I don't have it here, but you can look it up. There's a picture of everyone wearing Crimson Tide clothes. Mark Ingram, of course, is a few years older than Henry, and they were both running backs for Alabama. Ingram is wearing his Letterman's jacket because he's in the NFL at that point. He comes back to Bama, and he's standing on the field kind of like as an honorary captain for Bama. And this, I think, was maybe in Henry's senior year. And of course, Mark Ingram is a big guy and a running back who was a Heisman winner from Alabama. He looks like a child standing next to Derrick
Isn't
Henry.
that crazy?
I know. Derrick Henry would make us look like toddlers, and he looks like a child standing next. And he's a few years older. So the older NFL back standing next to then college player Henry looks like a child.
Crazy.
Yeah. I'll tell you who else looked like children this week. It's time for the LP Team of the Week. And I don't know why it's always my team, but the Tennessee Volunteers, they scored with only 43 seconds into the game off of a fumble return to take a 7-0 lead on Georgia. They managed to hold a 21-17 lead at halftime. And I'm looking at my notes here, but I think they canceled the second half due to weather.
Yes. I watched the first half of that game, and I thought, wow, I think Tennessee has a shot at the upset, and then they didn't.
It really just goes to show that the first half was more a byproduct of Tennessee getting lucky and Georgia genuinely playing poorly. In the second half, Georgia played well and Tennessee played about the level that they actually are.
Yeah.
Which is a yikes second half. Ends up being 44-21 Tennessee. I mean, obviously that's disappointing in the sense that with the way the first half went, it's a shame that the score got that out of hand. It should have been a closer game than that.
Mm-hmm.
However, I think that this still says more about the fact that Georgia might be on the favorite line.
Yeah, I think Georgia got off to a slow start, and I think they kind of lulled some people to sleep because they're starting to look like legitimate contenders.
Yeah. I'm not ready to write off my Volunteers just yet. I genuinely think it's more that Georgia might be one of, if not the best team. I mean they're ranked third, so it's not like it's a big shocker that they played well or anything. But there have been some upsets the last week or two, and teams playing inconsistently. We'll put it that way. Mm-hmm. I think Tennessee has played pretty consistently. I think the Tennessee you saw this weekend is the same Tennessee we've seen every week. It's just Georgia's a way better team than Missouri and South Carolina. So with that said, we're going to do one more really quickly before we get our solemn faces on. Let's talk about some shit announcers say.
Oh yes, I've got some good ones.
All right, hit me with one.
All right, I got to pull them up here. And now my phone doesn't want to open. There we go. All right, I've got one from our good friend Gary Danielson, one of our favorites, right?
Jesus.
He said the athletes all over the field are starting to have an effect on this football game.
You don't say.
Yes, as my wife said, well, I hope so.
I know. We got to replace those guys if they're not.
Right? You ready for another one?
Yes, go ahead and do another one.
I'm not sure who this was, but it was the announcer on the UK game against Mississippi State. He said, it's simple, but there's complexity.
So it's not simple.
I don't even know what that means.
I'll tell you one from my boy Tony Romo. I preach what a great announcer he is, and he is. But this was a yikes one right here. On the play that Dak Prescott went down, when you literally see Dak Prescott's foot pointing in the wrong direction, he said, quote, "You hope it's just a cramp."
Oh, that was a bad cramp.
That's a really, really bad cramp.
Yeah.
I'm only going to follow that up with one more from Ian Eagle, Las Vegas versus Kansas City. He said, "Oh man, all of a sudden I feel like I want some cranberry juice."
What?
I don't know. He just said it. It's just something he felt he needed to share live on air.
Well, I've got another one from the UK game.
All right.
When and if Kentucky gets the ball back. He said this with 9 minutes left in the third quarter.
If.
Incidentally, they did get the ball back several times.
Jonathan Vilma, Philadelphia versus Pittsburgh. Carson Wentz just threw an interception. He says, quote, "That's not what the Eagles offense wants to do right now." I mean, where's the lie, though?
He's not wrong. Exactly. I mean, that's the kind of you want accuracy in your announcing, right?
Yeah, that's why they're calling the games and we're doing sports ball.
Exactly.
They know what's up. With that said, it's time to get our solemn faces on. Time for in memoriam. We'll remember a player, a team, a coach, whoever. Sporting life was cut tragically short. Mike Maharrey, who are you remembering this week?
Well, I'll have to tell you. I'm not really very sad about this one.
Oh, no.
In fact, kind of makes me happy. We're remembering the New York Yankees. Tampa Bay Rays eliminated them from playoffs. It was a Game 5 victory. There's a little bit of drama. Mike Barrasso hit the game-winning home run off of Arlotis Chapman. Chapman had actually thrown a ball at his head at about 100 miles an hour earlier in the season and caused a big bench-clearing brawl. And Barrasso got his revenge by knocking one out of the park on Chapman and sending the Rays on to the American League Championship Series. So, bye-bye, Yankees.
I imagine most of the country who doesn't wear pinstripes is also sharing in your not sadness.
I think so.
Well, we already know who I'm remembering this week.
Yes.
I got to keep my finger on the trigger because I am not letting this video play for very long. Okay.
Oh.
It doesn't go that way, guys.
No.
Dak Prescott, who, I mean, we could do a whole episode on just Dak and the contract situation with Dallas and what this is going to mean going forward. Of course, Dak famously was not able to work out a long-term deal with the Cowboys. The Cowboys traditionally like to have shorter deals where they control the year by year because, I mean, let's face it, Jerry Jones likes to control his franchise.
Right.
Dak wanted more money and more guaranteed over longer years, more like a Mahomes. Mm-hmm. Now, look, I've always kind of been in the anti-Dak camp. I don't think that he's a long-term solution the way a Patrick Mahomes may be. However, yes, he's statistically top third in the league, though, and it would be a shame to just hit the coaching or hit the QB carousel when you have someone as physically gifted as he is. What does this mean for his future going forward? What does this mean for the contract? God only knows.
Who knows? Yeah.
It's going to be a toughie, and it's going to be one that if you were tired of hearing will they or won't they in Dak contract disputes over the last 6, 8, 10 months, you might as well get ready for like another 12, 16 months of the same argument.
Yeah, for sure.
I think the odds... I was going to say, I think the odds-on favorite right now is that he actually probably will end up signing another franchise tag, which will make him a pretty healthy chunk of change because he'll be signing a second tender. It's going to be worth something like $24, $27 million for 1 year, in a year that he may very well never take the field, by the way.
Right.
So it's not like I'm shedding any tears for Dak, but it's still just kicking the can down the road.
Yeah. He was having a pretty decent year statistically.
Yes. he was having a I'm going to set the all-time record for yardage in a season year statistically until he wasn't.
Of course, what a horrible time to go into, another contract negotiation when now you've created all these question marks again, because that's an injury that may or may not heal right.
Yes, I mean, there's a lot of unknown. The only thing we know for certain right now is that the Cowboys are moving forward with Andy Dalton. If you remember that name, the ginger giant from Cincinnati is now the starting quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys. Andy Dalton was interviewed, and he said that's why I came here. He doesn't want to be a career backup. He wants to start, and now he is. Now, that's not because he won the job, by the way. We're not going that far. But it's his job now. They win the game, albeit against a winless Giants. You know what the scariest part about all this is that Dallas has given up nearly 200 points already on the season. Mm-hmm. And with blowout losses to teams like the Browns and their franchise quarterback out for the year with injury. And yet they lead the NFC East. So we'll see. I'll tell you what, Andy Dalton's getting a hell of a opportunity to prove whether or not he can get another starting job, though. I will say that.
Yeah, he sure is.
I mean, Ryan Tannehill was in the same boat not that many months ago, and look where he is.
Yeah, for sure.
So, do you have a final thought?
Don't we have picks?
We do have picks. Well, you know what? Then don't answer my question. You don't have a final thought. You don't get
I don't have a final thought, but we do have picks.
I know, but I'm looking at the clock, and we're running really late. All right, we're going to do these fast.
All right, we'll do them real fast.
Remember all that stuff we said about Georgia and Alabama?
Yeah.
Number 3, Georgia visits number 2, Alabama. Mike, who do you have?
I'm going to go with Georgia.
You think that the Crimson Tide's time as number 1 in the SEC is over?
Yeah, I made this same pick last year. I'm just being consistent.
I'm going to go with Georgia, too. I am. Cleveland Browns playing Pittsburgh Steelers. I think it's the first game back from the whole Myles Garrett, Mason Rudolph, I'm going to take your helmet and beat you with it escapade.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that.
That's right. Who do you have in this one? Really quickly, Cleveland Browns are actually 4-1 after a season opening loss.
I'm not a Browns believer. I'm going to go with the Steelers.
I think the reason why the Browns are winning is because the hype train derailed. I don't think they want to be a team that has hype.
No.
With that said, the LeVeon Bell and Antonio Brownless Steelers look perfectly fine.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go with the Steelers, too. I think the Browns are a team that is perfectly ripe to derail as soon as the pressure gets to them. Speaking of pressure, the undefeated Green Bay Packers are on their way to Tampa to play the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Green Bay's 4-0. Tampa Bay is not 4-0 after a couple of yikes games. What do you think?
As much as it pains me, I got to go with Green Bay.
David Benner would be proud
of
your pick.
The Bucs are, for the first time, probably going to have all of their offensive weapons available, so that bodes well. So we might see some points put up, but we've got some injury issues on defense. Vita Vea, that loss is huge.
Yeah.
So,
I'm gonna go with Green Bay, but I have to, with the type of numbers that Aaron Rodgers is putting up right now. Not that he's not perfectly capable of putting up those numbers; he clearly is. He's in for a regression game eventually. No one finishes the season with perfect quarterback ratings and 0 interceptions. He's due. I don't know if the Tampa Bay defense will be the one to do it, but he's due for a coming back.
Yeah, another bad news. Carlton Davis, who's the Bucs' top corner, also was out of practice on Thursday. He's got some kind of abdominal injury and is questionable, so that's not good.
That's not a good week for that.
No.
And the Bears are nowhere near as good as the Packers.
No.
So, anyway, Chiefs and Bills. Now, how about this, Mike Maharrey? These are two teams coming off a loss.
I know.
Did anyone even a week ago believe that this was going to be a game between two teams coming off a loss?
Yeah, I was really surprised that the Chuckies took out the Chiefs. But I'm going to go with the Chiefs in this one. I say they bounce back.
Yeah, I think the Chiefs are more likely to bounce back. I mean, I think Mahomes is far and away a better quarterback than Josh Allen. I think Josh
Allen looked very Josh Allen-y of last year in that game against Titans.
The best headline I saw about this past Tuesday night's game is the Titans are playing like it's 2019, as in the end of last year's Titans. Unfortunately, Josh Allen played like 2019 Allen, which is not the best. I would be remiss to not point out that Josh Allen has shown a lot of improvement.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, I think that Buffalo's future is brighter than it is not. I think that if you think that the Patriots' time is coming to an end, then the Bills have to be the favorite in the AFC if the Patriots' window is closing. Josh Allen's still very young. This is his third season in the NFL, and he's improved. That's what you expect to see. You expect to see your high money draft picks improving year on year, and he absolutely has. With that seed, boy, he got exposed big time Tuesday night. And they're also, by the way, Bills and Titans both. Unfortunately, it's not the Bills' fault, although it's not the Titans' fault either. They're both going to be playing on a really short week, Tuesday night, and they're playing Sunday.
Yep.
We have a couple of pillow fights.
Ooh.
The first pillow fight is the 0-5 Atlanta Falcons versus the 1-4 Minnesota Vikings, whose only win is over a previously winless Houston Texans. Who do you have?
I'm going to go with the Vikings.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So the Falcons, of course, just got rid of Coach Quinn and their general manager as well, which is something I said was going to happen. I'm not surprised that the Falcons are moving on management-wise. I guess the only thing that shocks me is that Adam Gase wasn't the first to go, but we've now had multiple firings in the NFL while Adam Gase still has a job. It's amazing that the Texans rallied to their first victory this past week, despite the firing. I don't see that happening in it.
No.
I think Atlanta is every bit of a dumpster fire, whereas the Texans have Deshaun Watson.
And I still think that the Minnesota overall are a better team than they've showed so far.
Yeah, I mean, Minnesota has been to the playoffs the last few seasons, and they have a couple of big wins over the Saints. I mean, they can't just be a one-win team overnight. They just can't be.
Yeah.
I think that they've just had a really bad season at this point. Now, that it might be too little too late for them to salvage this year, but I think they can beat the Atlanta Falcons.
Yeah.
Last one, another pillow fight. The Washington Potomac Drainage Basin indigenous persons who are 1-4 against the 0-5 New York Giants. Who do you have?
I'm going to go Giants.
Really? You're going to go Giants? You think they get their first win of the year?
Probably not.
So now you're already questioning yourself. Now, hold on a minute.
Yeah, actually, I meant to say Redskins. But then I was thinking, no, I can't say Redskins because that's not allowed.
Yeah.
So
what
I really meant was Washington football team.
Okay.
I think I need the Giants to stay unwinning so that we can have an unwinning pillow fight down the road.
I do desperately want to see the Giants and Falcons both having no wins and vying for the number 1 draft pick. I do genuinely want to see that. However, I tell you what, I actually think the Giants are going to win.
Do you really?
I really do. I mean, the thing about the Giants is that, I mean, they are genuinely as bad as their record indicates, but they haven't been totally blown out in every game.
Yeah.
And Daniel Jones is not an untalented quarterback. It's just, I mean, the injury issues, Saquon Barkley being out.
I was getting ready to say Saquon being out is a huge.
What few safety blankets you thought Daniel Jones would have, he doesn't have anymore.
Right.
And of course, you know, their new coach, Judge, you know, he's only been there. This is like his first season, second season. So I mean, there's a lot not to like about the Giants, but I mean, Washington's a total dumpster fire as well. Their one win was a what the heck just happened come from behind victory against the Eagles, which, by the way, no one's singing the Eagles praises either.
Right.
But I mean, you look at this last week. I mean, again, no one's singing the Cowboys praises either. But look, I mean, the Cowboys needed a miracle last-second field goal to win that game.
True.
The Giants could easily be 2-3 if they could have played one more possession better in any of those games.
Right.
So, with that said, I think if the Giants can even put together half of a decent game, that could be enough to win this particular pillow fight. I don't know. I just have a weird feel. I mean, if teams don't typically go 16-0, teams typically don't go 0-16.
True.
Teams will luck their way into a couple of wins in the same way they can luck their way into a couple of losses.
Right.
If the Giants are going to win a game, and statistically they're likely to at least win a couple, this is one of those games. So that's all I'm saying. So I'm going to go with the Giants. They're going to prove me an idiot very shortly. Do you have a final thought?
I do have a final thought.
Okay.
This is something that will probably never happen again.
Okay.
We have the potential for a city to win the Stanley Cup and go to the World Series within 2 weeks.
Oh.
Maybe 3 weeks. I don't know the exact math, but yeah, the Tampa Bay Lightning won the Stanley Cup just a couple of weeks ago. And if the Rays can win this afternoon, this evening, then they will go to the World Series. You will never see that happen again because you'll never have the Stanley Cup played in, September, October again. So
this is true. It definitely looks like the Rays may be the odds-on favorite. I think a lot of people thought that the overall favorite was the Dodgers, but the Dodgers are having a bit of a yikes situation with the Braves right now.
Yeah, until they blew off 11 runs in the first inning yesterday.
They did, but it's not popular. It's not popular run vote in a series.
That's
so
true. We have the electoral college style.
Yes. If
Atlanta's a good football team. No, they're not.
No, they're not. I can tell you which team.
Baseball team.
I can tell you which team won't have a Super Bowl and a World Series this year, and it's Atlanta.
Yes.
That is for sure not going to happen. Yeah, I don't know. We haven't talked a lot of baseball. Maybe next week we'll talk a little bit of baseball because it's coming down to the World Series now, and you've got some interesting AL and NLCS series going on. I'm not ready to write off the Dodgers by any extent, especially after that game. But they still trail the series 2-1. Atlanta just has to pull out two more gritty performances, and on the other side, it's going to be the Rays. I mean, the Astros are lucky to have staved off elimination. I mean, they needed to I mean, they almost threw it up in the 9th inning last night. So I think the Rays are probably a lock at this point. You know what? Let me ask you this question really quick before I do my final thought. If you're the Rays, who would you rather play next week? Would you rather play the Braves or the Dodgers?
I think the Rays would probably rather play the Braves because they've seen them this year.
Okay, that's fair. That's the only reason I asked that is that it's good to have this on tape for posterity's sake, because I think the common logic would be, well, the Dodgers are the best team, ergo I'd rather play the Braves. But if the Braves get to the World Series, it's because they beat all of those teams, including the Dodgers. So it's one of those. I mean, obviously you kind of pick your poison. That's why they play the games, as they say. Like I said, I'm not ready to say that the Braves are going to win that particular series, but Braves-Rays, it could be it.
It could be.
I don't know. We'll see. I'll tell you what my final thought is, though.
All right.
Check out this guy right here. Alex Smith playing his first game 693 days.
Not
after
him.
No, not Kyle Allen. There's Smith's family. He comes in, he throws a completion on his first pass after 693 days of not being on the field. After that, what did they call that break? It was like a tornado break thing.
Oh,
where
yeah.
I mean,
and then an infection that nearly killed him.
Yeah, so I mean, basically someone ripped his leg off on national television, and then he also almost died of an infection.
Right.
This guy comes back, he's playing football again. How about that? I tell you what, how about that as inspiration for Dak Prescott?
There you go.
Yeah, I think Alex.
I tell you what though, Alex needs to work on his kids' mask etiquette.
Oh yeah, his daughter wants his grandmother to die. That's 100%.
Yeah. And the son's had his nose showing too, so.
I'm glad you point out the important things in that.
Yes, that's why you have me on this show.
Guys, thank you so much for listening to another episode of Sports Ball, and we will see you next week. Love me.
You've been listening to Sports Ball with Mike Maharrey and Alan Mosley. You can follow us on Facebook and leave comments, suggestions. Just go to @SportsBall Podcast. That's @SportsBall Podcast on Facebook. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you again next time.